we are going to tackle the 1979 American horror classic, Phantasm. Haha, that's right. Boy, I love this movie. I love the Phantasm movies. I love all 5 of them, actually. But, yeah, this came out after Halloween. And it was directed, written, photographed, edited by Don Coscarelli. It's the first film in the Phantasm franchise and introduces the Tall Man, played by Angus Scrimm, a supernatural undertaker who turns the dead of Earth into dwarf zombies to be sent to his planet and used as slaves. Now that is a crazy plot. He's opposed by a young boy named Mike, who tries to convince his older brother Jody and family friend Reggie of the threat. So, this movie was a locally financed independent film. It had a budget of $300,000 and made, I believe, $12 million at the box office. So, and Coscarelli, couldn't afford a lot of things for this movie. And most of the cast and crew were amateurs and aspiring professionals. And the initial reviews were mixed in regards to the dreamlike, surreal narrative of the film. But later, it had a positive following and became a cult classic. And it appears on several critics' lists as one of the best horror films ever made. And I have to agree. It is very, very different from anything you've ever seen. And I say that, about Hellraiser as well, because Hellraiser can be weird too. In this one, there's a lot of supernatural stuff that happens. Like dwarves, and then these spheres that fly around, and then the tall man who has superhuman strength. And there's a lot of things that happen that you're just like, what? Like, wow. But let's go over the cast. So yeah, Angus Scrimm as the Tall Man. Coscarelli was intimidated by Angus Scrimm, and so he thought he would make a great villain. And so what he did was, when he was suited for his outfit right there, his tux, or his suit, they made it small so he would look skinnier and taller. And I think it worked. He's a very powerful character, and even on screen, Coscarelli states that, when he's on screen, he turns into somebody else, Angus. He was so good. You got Michael Baldwin as Mike Pearson, and of course, after the death of his parents, Mike tries to convince his brother and Reggie that a local mortician called the Tall Man is responsible for their deaths. Coscarelli attributes the enduring popularity of the film to young audiences who respond to Mike's adventures. After they worked together in a prior film, Coscarelli wrote a film in which Baldwin could star. You got Bill Thornbury as Jody Pearson, and Jody is Mike's older brother. After their parents die, Jody becomes Mike's guardian, but Jody confides into his friends that he's uncomfortable with the responsibility, of course. Just like every big brother who can't take responsibility, or doesn't want to, basically. Reggie Bannister plays Reggie. Coscarelli based the character of Reggie on his friend Reggie Bannister, for whom the role was written, and then twisted the character into new directions. He was there for comic relief, a loyal friend. Kathy Lester as the Lady in Lavender. The Tall Man appears in the form of the Lady in Lavender, which he uses to seduce and kill Tommy, Jody's friend. Laura Mann appears as Kathy Lester's double, credited as Double Lavender. Pretty awesome film. This has a lot of special features on it. I also have this on Blu-ray. Right there it says unforgettable. That's right. It's an unforgettable film. I will never forget the scene where you have the Tall Man. He's in the cemetery, right? And he lifts a 500-pound casket by himself, and he shoves it into the back of the hearse. Because there's a burial going on. There's a funeral going on. They're attending Tommy's funeral, believing that he committed suicide, and Mike is secretly observing the funeral from the bushes, and then after everyone leaves, he witnesses the tall man pick this coffin up, which is Tommy's coffin casket, and then just lifts it by himself. Usually it takes a bunch of people on each side to do that, to lift a casket, but this guy just picks it up and shoves it. Oh my God, it's like, I'll never forget that scene. Like, that's a crazy scene. And then, of course, the scene, where the spear's flying through the mausoleum and hits that caretaker in the head, and, starts drilling into his head, and blood starts flying out. There's just so many memorable scenes in this. I'll never forget the scene, too, where I think it's towards the third act, where they find this mysterious room. They find this mysterious room in the mausoleum, and they discover that there's these two. Well, first they discover a bunch of barrels, or like they're more like oil drum canisters, okay, with dwarved reanimated corpses, because that's what he does. The tall man basically takes corpses, reanimates them into dwarf people to use them as slaves. And so Mike, he accidentally falls through a portal and catches a brief glimpse of a red hot planet where the dwarves are slaves. Of course, Jody helps him back, but they kind of come to the conclusion that the tall man comes from the red planet, and that the corpses are shortened so they can withstand the increased gravity and temperatures, which is cool. Like, it's like another place. It's like there's these two posts, and you walk right through them, and you end up in another dimension or another place, which is really awesome. It's like this room, this random room. That's something you'll never forget either. I mean, it's just like, it adds more to the story, and like, if you should just imagine, like, man, that's just really cool. There's just a lot of memorable things in this film, for sure. Funding for the film actually came from Coscarelli's father. Some of it did, and he was credited as the film's producer. And additional funding actually came from doctors and lawyers. His mother designed some of the special effects, the costumes, the makeup. The cast and crew were composed of mainly friends and aspiring professionals. But due to their inexperience, they did not realize that firing blanks could be dangerous, because Coscarelli's jacket caught on fire from a shotgun blank. But he could not afford to hire an editor or cameraman, so Coscarelli did the duties himself. That's what you do when you can't afford stuff. You just got to go all out yourself and take responsibility. Filming was done weekends and sometimes lasted for 20 hours over the course of more than a year. And then Reggie Bannister describes the production as flying by the seat of your pants. The actors would be called basically to perform their scenes and picked up as soon as they were available. Reggie Bannister did many of his own stunts. It was set in Oregon, took place primarily in San Fernando Valley in California. And the script changed all the time during production. And Bannister even said that he never saw a completed copy of it at all. I remember the same thing happened in The Shining too. Like, you can see that in the behind the scenes where Jack Nicholson is reading a certain script, but then he gets like, they're sitting there, they give him another copy of the script and he's sitting there trying to learn it. And he even talks about that. Like, Kubrick was always changing things. So since he never saw a completed copy of the script, they worked scene by scene and used did a lot of improv. And so, and that brings up new ideas when you're doing improv. It's not just like a set in stone word for word thing. You're just kind of making things up as you go. And that sometimes can be good. But the script was unfocused, and it was rewritten during filming. The Spheres came from Cascarelli's nightmares. One of his nightmares, actually. The original idea didn't involve anything about drilling, though. But there was a guy named Will Green who was a metal worker who fashioned the iconic spheres. And he never got to see the finished film. And he died before the film was released, which is pretty sad. But post-production took another 6 to 8 months. The first test screening was poorly received due to the film's length, because Cascarelli thought that he added too much character development, which needed to be edited out. But during the shooting, they did not have a clear idea of the ending. There are several endings that were filmed, and one of them was reused in Part 4, Oblivion, actually. But a lot went on for this. I mean, a low-budget film in the later 70s, and he had this really cool idea, and he tried to put it together himself. He even paid an audience to watch an early cut of the film. And he even thought, Cascarelli thought that the early cut of the film was a disaster. Even from the financial success of Halloween, which was released the prior year, they were basically taking kind of a risk, because this was nothing like that movie at all. It turned out to be positive. And like I said, it became a cult following. One of the craziest films I've ever seen, for sure. The film was nominated for the Saturn Award for Best Horror Film in 1980. But yeah, this movie, I'm telling you, it's got everything. This is definitely a original idea and an original horror film. Nothing like anything you've seen at all. That's why I like these kind. They're unforgettable, and it's just something that you just appreciate it. You appreciate the work that went in. And the effects are great. With the spheres flying around and the blood effects, and and it's even got some creepy moments with the tall man. Like when they're in the mausoleum and they're face to face, the tall man and Mike, and they're facing each other, and they're walking really slow down the mausoleum hallway, and there's an opening to the right. And you can tell he's wanting to get out of there, so they walk closer and closer and closer. All of a sudden, he takes off. He books. He books, and then the tall man's running after him. And you're thinking, the tall man's running. He's kind of older, but he can move because he's got long legs. He's so tall, and he's got a long reach. He almost gets him, and Mike shuts the door on tall man's hand. And when he this yellow stuff comes out of his hand. The yellow blood comes out. So yeah, it's crazy. And when he cuts the fingers off, the tall man, he does this alien roar. While the yellow blood gushes out from the wound. And And then Mike takes like one of the tall man's moving fingers. It's crazy, man. This is definitely a horror classic, for sure. If you have not seen Phantasm, I definitely recommend this to you guys. And down the line, I'm definitely going to review the other 4 films in the Phantasm series, but that'll come probably later. Anyway, guys, if I had to rate Phantasm, I would give this movie a solid 8 out of 10, for sure.